All right, so section 5.3 is solving by factoring. Have we already learned how to factor? Yeah. So we're going to look at, mainly today we're going to look at kind of some of the stuff that we've already learned how to factor. We'll kind of go through that kind of quick. And then we're going to start looking at some different types of factoring that we haven't yet learned. Okay? So kind of step by step, you guys know a lot of this already. To factor a polynomial equation, first move all the terms so the equation equals 0. Always remember to factor out the blank before doing any other kind of factoring, GCF. If you feel like filling the blank, it would be greatest common factor if you don't like the big long one. Once the equation has been factored, set each factor equal to 0 and solve. This is not new to us. The blank of the polynomial is equal to the number of solutions or zeros. The, would you say, exponent, or it's also known as the degree. But you're right, that is the highest exponent. We've talked about that throughout the course of this class so far. If an equation cannot factor completely to linear factors, meaning you like have x plus 4, right, just an x, not x squared, not x cubed, just an x. So if it cannot factor that way, so far everything we've ever factored always does, then you will have to use the quadratic formula or finding square roots when necessary. This is a new step. Or you could use quadratic formula. Absolutely. So I know a lot of you will go to that no matter what. Yeah. Probably. All right, solutions or zeros may be blank or blank. I agree with that, but that's not what I was looking for. Real or imaginary. Not fake, not real. Imaginary, right? There's a negative under your radical. It's going to be imaginary. Make sure you watch out for factors that are not linear. You probably a lot of times can factor them further, or if they're not linear, you can use square root method or you can use quadratic formula. Okay? So this is a little new for us. We've never hit a point where we can't just factor it and be like, oh, my answers are blah, 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 right? You may have to use some of those methods we learned in chapter 4 to take it one step further. Yes? Mm-hmm. Correct. So if you don't have a b value and you have like x squared minus 3 is left in one of your parentheses, you could solve that using the square root method. Just move the 3, take the square root. But so you'd have radical 3. Yeah. Hang with me. I'll show you all kinds of stuff. All right. So solve the equation by factoring. We might go a little quick through some of these because it should be some basic factoring stuff. So number 1, good, GCF of 2x. So we're left with x squared plus 4x plus 3 equals 0. Can you factor that further? Yep. Your signs are plus plus. X squared is just x and x. And your numbers are 3 and 1. Good. So you would tell me that x equals 0, negative 3, and what? Negative 1. Good. This is stuff we've done before, yes? We've seen this. Good. Yeah, you just had it on your quiz. If that's confusing you, we have bigger issues. Was it on the quiz? Oh. Number 2, what do you have to do first? Set it equal to 0. Good. So 2x to the 4th minus 5x cubed minus 12x squared equals 0. GCF? X squared. So 2x squared minus 5x minus 12 equals 0. Should we try to factor further? Probably should. Signs? Okay. Positive, negative, opposite. All right, options for a 2. So 1x and 2x. Oh, we got some options here. 12. It's going to be 1 and 12, 2 and 6, or 3 and 4. Now, 2 and 6, you should be able to eliminate right off the start. Why? If you put a 2 or a 6 here, what would you have going on in here? You'd have a GCF sitting in there. So we know it can't be that. Good. 4 and 3. Let me try that. 4, 3. That gives me 8 minus 3. I need to switch my signs. But don't forget those little tricks we kind of talked about, kind of eliminating some of those possibilities. It's all right. That's why we go over them now. All right. So then you tell me that x equals 0, 0. Good. Half of negative 3, as Jesse would say. Right? Not rocket science, right? We've done all this. They could. All right, number 3. You want to skip it? What if one of them shows up in here that you can't factor?
So I'm going to take it one of these and create it. Yeah, which one is it?
I don't know.
Probably 2 or 3.
Let's find out.
Yeah.
You might be able to factor part. The discriminant is only good on quadratics, x squared. None of your problems are all just x squared. Well, doesn't take that long. 15x cubed plus 12x squared minus 6x equals 0. 3x. We'll just move a little faster. How's that sound? Okay, so we try to factor. You never know. Your signs are opposite. So 1 and 5, 1x, 5x. Options here. 1 and 2. So 1 and 2, that gives me 5 minus 2. That doesn't work. It doesn't work the other way either, so what's that mean? I can't factor that any further. How many answers should you have in this problem? You should have 3. Right? Your problem started off as x cubed. I know I should have 3 answers. Do you know any of the answers right now? One of them 0. We know one of them 0. Ta-da! There's one. Yay, got that one. How do you find the other ones? That doesn't factor. You learned 4 methods last chapter. I'd probably go quadratic formula. So x equals negative b, negative 4, plus or minus square root b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a. Yeah. What's 4 squared minus 4 times 5 times negative 2?
That's 20, that's 40, that's 40. So it's negative. Hold on, wait. Oh, it's positive. So it's positive 40 plus 16.
Good. I'm like, I know you're there. Like, I know you're there. All right. Factor tree on 56. Yeah, it's going to be 2 radical 7. No, 2 radical 14.
Yeah.
14.
Wait,
Because it's 14 times 4.
I want to factor tree this. Hold on.
8 times 7 is 56.
Okay, let's go with your 8 and 7.
7 is 30.
I agree, but you take off that pair of 2's and you have. Yeah.
See how I always do it as an 8 and 7?
All over 10. All 3 numbers. Divided by 2. Negative 2 plus or minus radical 14 all over 5.
That's 2 comma 0. 1 comma.
All right. I'm okay, guys, if you write them in separate spots as long as you circled them. Okay? How many answers is this? That's 2. -2 plus radical 14 over 5, -2 minus radical 14 over 5. There's 2 answers, and there's the third. What? I don't know.
My brain's just not realizing we're going back to the triangle.
Do we understand the process? So if you can't factor it, what are you going to do? True or false? Quadratic formula can be used to solve any equation. Any quadratic equation has to be x squared. So really throughout the rest of this chapter, you're going to find not everything will be able to factor it at all. So we're going to learn, this section will factor things. As this chapter progresses, we'll get to where you can't factor anything out of it, and then you're like not at an x squared, so then you have to turn to your graphing calculator to get some answers to try to get the problem down to an x squared, so then you can factor the rest, or quadratic formula in the end. Yeah. I'm sorry. All right, difference of squares. We remember difference of squares? Does anybody need me to do one of those? Just one? I can do one. Which one do you like? 6. Set it equal to 0. 100x squared minus 81. Why is this the one that you decided to pick?
Yeah, that was like an easy.
10x plus 9, 10x minus 9. So x equals plus or minus 9/10. You remember difference of squares, right? No? Does that rack? Yeah? 2 terms, take square roots. Right? That's what it's called, difference of squares, because difference means subtract, and you have 2 square numbers. They're perfect squares. I mean, I don't want to go too fast, but I don't want to bore you guys either if you know how to do this. No, I factored that. Yes, number 4, set it equal to 0. So 12x cubed minus 75x. GCF? 3x. So 4x squared minus 25. Do you see it? These are both perfect squares. Right. 1 plus, 1 minus, so 2x and 5. So what does x equal?
0 plus and minus.
If you like to write it 5 over 2 and then negative 5 over 2, I'm just lazy and wrote it all combined.
5.
Is that coming back to us now a little bit? Okay, all right. Here's a little bit that's a little different here, guys. What if it isn't quadratic? What if it's not x squared? Can you still factor it? Yes.
No.
Yes. Yes, you can. Yes.
I refuse to read it.
That's just it. People don't read things. So. Yes, you can.
No.
Now, can you factor things that are not x squared? Yes, you can. However, notice both of these problems. You'll see an x to the 4th, and the next one is an x squared. The second term, your middle term, would have to be half of whatever the exponent is. So if my highest exponent is x to the 10th, the other one would have to be x to the 5th. If it's x to the 20th, the other one's x to the 10th. Okay, it's always half.
So if it's not the cube.
Correct. Correct. All right, so set them equal to 0. Same idea. This is where things get a little fun in this section.
Your definition or our definition?
Probably mine. Is there a GCF? No. But I can still factor. Notice it goes x to the 4th and then x squared.
Oh.
Right. The second one's half. What did you just say? How does it start to factor? X squared and x. You're right. Yeah, 1's plus, 1's minus. Yeah, because if I multiply x squared times x squared, you get x to the 4th. You're just splitting them in half, which is why the middle one has to be half for it to work. All right, and 15? 5 and 3, which one's positive? The 5. All right, before I go any further, I want to make sure we're okay on the factoring. The only difference in my factoring, it's the same idea as before, except I had x to the fourth, so it'll split x squared, x squared. If I had x to the 10th, it would split x to the 5th, x to the 5th. If I have x to the 100th, it would split x to the 50th, x to the 50th. Yeah. Okay, to finish solving from here, you're both right. Can I continue factoring this? I can't factor, but I can solve it.
Oh yeah, look at me.
Because if I set x squared plus 5 equal to 0, same process we always were doing, right? X squared minus 3 equals 0. I can do the square root method. So x, I can take the square root. Is that better? Right, move the 5. Take the square root of both sides. Plus or minus. Yeah. Guys, this is where chapter 4 meets chapter 5 and they merged. And you guys are like, ah, crap, I thought I was done. You still have to use all that. So then this one, you go x squared equals 3 square root plus or minus radical 3. How many answers should you have? 4. Do you have 4? Yeah. Plus, minus, plus, minus. Do you have 4 answers there? Highest exponent is 4. Yep, so highest exponent is 4, so I should have 4 answers. Here's 1, 2, 3, 4. Number 8. Next. Set it equal to 0. So 3x to the 4th minus 13x squared plus 4. Guys, hang with me here. GCF? No. All right, so my signs are both negative. Options for A. So we're going to have 3x squared and 1x squared. 4. 1 and 4 or 2 and 2? 1 and 4. Right? Because 1, that's going to give me negative x squared, negative 12x squared. Gives me negative 13. Yes? Stay tuned later in this chapter. It's coming. It's coming. So same idea as that last one? No, it wouldn't be. So 3x squared minus 1 equals 0. X squared minus 4 equals 0. Add 1. You guys all right? Divide by 3. So x squared equals 1/3. Not just 1/3. Hold on. What's the square root of 1? Square root of 3. Radical 3. Can't leave a radical on the bottom. Radical 3 over 3. Don't forget plus minus. Isn't this fun? That's 2 answers. I'm not done yet. I got to finish the other one. Finish this one. X squared equals 4. Square root x equals plus minus 2.
I like the 4. That's my favorite.
Yeah, that one's easy. It's stuff you've already learned. You guys got all A's and 2 B's on that test. I know you know how to do it. There was 2.
I'm suddenly he or she did not time plus stuff. Whoever it was, not
They don't have to.
he and or she is mysterious.
Number 9. What's number 9? It's a difference of squares. 1 plus, 1 minus. So what happens here? 9x squared. Good, and that's 11. It's just like before, but instead of x and x, you have x squared, x squared. Right, you just kind of split those in half.
Wait, it's plus or minus plus or minus?
So equals 0. hold your thoughts, solve these separately. So we get 9x squared plus 11 equals 0. 9x squared minus 11 equals 0. Yeah, solve them separate. And normally we're like plus, minus, blah, blah, right? Pretty much. But now it's not quite that easy. Because we'll get 9x squared equals negative 11. Divide by 9.
So plus minus I radical 11 over 3.
Yes. Plus or minus I radical 11 over 3.
So it would be
So 9x squared equals 11.
plus or
X
minus
squared equals 11 over 9. Square root, top, bottom,
plus minus radical 11.
over 3. One's imaginary, one's not.
Nobody likes you.
All right, I know we're moving kind of fast, trying to get through this. How are we feeling so far, math-wise?
Is that a bridge over there?
I have no idea. Amanda? If the exponent is even.